Hey guys, if you've just joined us live on Facebook, stick around because you're going to learn a lot about upper arm pain today with myself and the fabulous, she's there, Maud. How are you,
Hi, everyone.
How's it going?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. You're back in clinic, aren't you?
Not yet. I'm back in one of my clinic, and then at Perfect Balance, because of the gym is not open yet, but we'll be back very soon. And I'm doing online consultation at the moment to still try and help everyone.
Excellent. But we've got some very exciting news because we're going to be opening Perfect Balance Cambridge as of next week, I think. I need to check with the manager. I might get in trouble for saying that, but listen out for any announcements coming through the text or email. But yeah, if you're sticking around this evening, you're going to learn a hell of a lot about tennis elbow and other afflictions of the upper limb. So the upper limb is really anything from the shoulder. If I can get, go this way.
Yeah.
Anything from the shoulder to the forearm. So anything between there could be causing pain. So what would you say what's the anatomy like there? What kind of things do people need to watch out for there, Maud?
Well, I think the main thing within the arm and the forearm that we struggle when we're learning is that there's a lot of muscle, especially in the forearm. I think it's about 22 in the forearm or something like that.
Ton of muscle.
Yeah, there's a ton of muscle. So sometimes you're using a lot of muscle doing movements and things like that.
Yeah.
So as a practitioner, a lot can go wrong, and you need to figure out exactly where the pain comes from and what is happening. But you also have tendons, nerves coming down from the neck all the way down into your arm and your hands.
Yeah. So it's because there's lots going on there, it's an easy area for people to get mistaken with the diagnosis. So we see a lot of people in the clinic who have been given a diagnosis, but clearly if they're coming back to see us, maybe there's something not quite right about that and they've not been given the right diagnosis, or they might need a little bit more investigation. But what are the most common diagnosis that you see in the upper arm? So the upper arm.
Probably there's a couple, but most common would be lateral epicondylitis, which is most common, say about tennis elbow.
Yep.
That's when you get pain into your forearm here. But also people often get pain in their forearm from neck. So that's also quite a common thing that we see in clinic.
Yeah, so there's lots of areas that can cause problems, but why do you think it's an area? Because people get problems in their neck and it comes down into their elbow, but why do you think why does that happen exactly? Why do people get that?
So people get that from the nerve. So when you get pain from the neck down into your elbow and hand, that's mainly from nerve irritation high up into your neck, or from muscles where the nerve passes through. It just irritates the nerve, and then as it comes down, it will create some types of pain or pins and needles or numbness going down into your arm and your hand.
Yeah, it's good. So if you're watching live on Facebook, we're actually going to show you some exercises that you can do very easily to, one, work out what's going on, but two, also start to treat some of the areas that you might be having problems with. Now, clearly, if we give you advice, it's not specific, and you do need to go and get checked out as well. But there's some really easy things that you can do at home with upper limb problems that can easily kind of either work out what's going on or start to even get that better as well. So we'll show you some things to do with nerves, and we'll show you also some things to do with the tennis elbow as well. So stick around if you're watching this, because you'll learn a little bit of magic, won't you? It's like practical magic, isn't it? It's really cool. It's it's a great job that we do, because it's using scientific principles and physiology to be able to get to the root of what's causing people's problems. But I think one of the biggest skills that we have, Maud, isn't it? It's listening.
Yeah. And listening was what people tell about their story and how things happened. And that's how sometimes you can pick up things.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting when you first ask someone how they think they injured themselves, because I think that's probably the number one question that you need to ask or be asked to work out where the problem's coming from, because there's a lot of traumatic things that can happen around the elbow, aren't there? So there's lots of traumatic injuries, but there's also lots of non-traumatic injuries that can happen as well. So what traumatic injuries have you seen around the elbow that people come in with?
So there's a lot with sports player. So a lot of people, when they're throwing things, or so it's more repetitive strain. So for example, tennis player, exactly like we say, like tennis elbow. So tennis player just repetitive strain onto the forearm and on using the muscles. I think that's not the main thing injury wise. It's going to be with sport and a repetitive motion of the arm.
Yeah, exactly. So is tennis elbow exclusive for tennis players?
No, not at all. That's
Exactly.
just a common thing that we call.
We see more tennis elbow in non-tennis players than in tennis players, which is quite interesting, and probably more golfers' elbow in non-golfers you see in golfers. So yeah, it's really interesting that they have these names, but I guess it's probably just a hang-up from the past. So we tend to use the word lateral or medial epicondylitis, don't we, when we're describing tennis elbow?
Yeah, we just mean on the inside or on the outside of the elbow.
Yeah, they often get confused, don't they? I know even when sometimes I interview people, you've clearly passed because you work with us, but sometimes when I interview people, you ask them about tennis elbow and they're still like they've graduated and they're still towards the inside here, and that's not tennis elbow. It is a tendinopathy, so they're quite common, aren't they? And I think that's why sometimes people get mixed up with them. Don't you think? Yeah.
Yeah, as people as well, you know, it's only two sides, so they get confused with names and things. And because now we have golfers and tennis, and then lateral and medial, people get confused between both, I think.
Yeah, they're chunking too big, aren't they, Maud? So they're thinking about sports and then they get mixed up and they go down the wrong side. So the stuff that we've been learning about when we've been talking about communication in the clinic. But yeah, they're chunking not correct. So so what do you, in terms of the diagnosis of tennis elbow, so how would you go about diagnosing that in clinic when you're working with someone? What kind of tests would you use? What would you look for? What would you look for in the history? Because that's a really common problem, isn't it?
Yeah, so in the history, you look for that repetitive movement that they've been doing, and seeing if there is something that comes up in the history or any injury that happened to the forearm. And then testing, there's quite a lot of testing that you can do. Some of those tests would be on resisting the muscle. So you would, for example, lift your forearm, and then I would resist lifting your hand up, and I would create pain into your forearm here. Or it's stretching it, so it's going the other way. You would try and stretch the muscle, and then I could create pain as well. So there's a lot of different things that you can try and do to pinpoint where the strain is.
Yeah, exactly. In the history, because we talked about the history, what kind of things would you be looking for that might point you towards tennis elbow? And if they were complaining about tingling or pins and needles, what other things might you start to think about then?
Yeah, so I would probably, well, I had one the other day actually in clinic, and he's a painter, so he was off during the break, and then now he started again. And I think after this pause, starting again with repetitive movement of the wrist up and down irritated the muscles in the forearm. He's not getting pins and needles or numbness. If there is any of that, I would be looking for a nerve component to that. So that's more of a nerve irritation. And there is a nerve that's coming down in the forearm, and that can get impinged in between muscles. So as it passes through, if the muscles are very tight, it can get a little bit irritated and then create those pins and needles.
Yeah, exactly. Also, if the muscles are overdeveloped as well. So you see a lot of weightlifters, for example, who have very big brachioradialis muscles here, and the radial nerve comes down the back of the arm here and across the elbow, like Maud was saying. And if you've got tennis elbow and you've got pins and needles as well, you'd probably start to think about the nerve being involved. Now, that isn't the case that the nerve is the only thing that's involved, because what we often find is it's not just one thing, it can be multiple things that are there at the same time as well. So I wouldn't discount tennis elbow or lateral epicondylitis, but I would certainly start to question other things that can be involved as well. And I think that's something common that we see in the clinic. When people come in, they say, oh, I've had this treatment for my tennis elbow in here, and you've had loads of great treatment, you've had loads of great physio exercises and stretches and other things from osteopaths and sports therapists, or acupuncture even, but then they're still getting this dull ache that's across here, and they're still getting the pins and needles. So it's not the case that they've had the wrong treatment, but they might not have had enough treatment directed at the right areas. And I think that's I love those cases because it makes you feel like you're a superstar, doesn't it, in clinic? You think, oh, great, tennis elbow, but you've got this nerve bit, and then you just fix the nerve, and wow, it's magic. It's gone just like that.
Yeah. It's looking a bit further, so there's this area, but it could be irritated all along its course. So it's looking all along its course if there's anything happening, and try to relieve that.
Yeah, fantastic. So what would you do if you had someone coming in with tennis elbow, but they've got some nerve irritation there as well? So what kind of other things might you involve in that?
So I'd probably want to figure out where the nerve is being a bit impinged or irritated. So it could be quite a few areas. If it's in the forearm, it's probably those kind of tests, so stretching through here, that you would represent it. Otherwise, you have other tests that stretches the nerve all along its course, that you basically, it's like there's things like that you're stretching the nerve, and that involves as well, that show you if the nerve is irritated and where it can be.
Yeah, brilliant. If you're watching live or if you're watching the replay, if you've got any questions and you'd like to ask, just drop them in the comments box below, and we're more than happy to get back to you. So if you suffered, or you know someone that's suffering from tennis elbow and they'd like a little bit of advice, lockdown's been quite an interesting time, because we've seen a lot of people now that we've opened the clinic that have been doing a lot of painting the garden fence, painting the gate post, painting the sheds. I've seen a couple of people have been painting the sheds, or painting the inside of their house as well, painting the ceiling, and they've been brushing away, and they've come in and their tendons really swollen in here as well. Are there any things you'd want to watch out for with a swollen tendon like that, Maud? What would you say you'd watch out for?
Well, the main thing you want to watch out is to see if there's an actual tear of the tendon, or if its attachment is pulling on the bone. So if there's maybe coming off from the bone. So that's two bit of extreme things. So that would be if you really went hard for it. And that's the main thing. You'd need a little bit more attention through that, and making sure that you're not overdoing on that, because that can make the problem worse.
Yeah, exactly. And when you start to get pain, it's a good idea, if it's repetitive movement, to try and cut that down as much as you can. But when in the extreme situations where there's not very much blood supply in the outside of here, what can happen is you start to fray the tendon. It gets worse and worse with loading as well. So these people often, you've been painting all day, then you go and lift all the gear that you've been painting with and put it back in the shed, and that's when it gets ruptured. So it may not be when you're painting, but you weaken it, and then you excessively load it after that, and that's a recipe for disaster. So those are the ones in the clinic that we always want to try and watch out for, because they're the people that have a lot of pain with this, or they have no pain at all. So if it's completely ruptured, then you may not have any pain, and this might not be very strong at all when you try and lift up against resistance. So that's something definitely to watch out. But it can get confusing, can't it? Because if you've got a trapped nerve in your neck, or a damaged nerve in your neck, and it's affecting here, you also may lose power as well. So it makes it very confusing. That's why the history and listening is so important, to getting that diagnosis right as quickly as possible, hopefully first time, or if we can't get it right first time, doing a scan to have a look at the area to make sure that we're going down the right track.
Yeah, exactly. Because those people with coming from the neck probably won't have the history of painting a lot and then carrying something really heavy. So we would look out for these things in the case history.
Yeah, precisely. Normally those kind of people, they've slept funny, they've hurt their neck, and they've woken up and their neck's stiff. They don't do anything about it, or they go and see someone, whichever. The nerve's still irritated, and it comes out here after a couple of days or so, and they start to get pain in their arm. They might get tingling in their fingers as well, so, or weakness, but tingling first and then typically weakness later if you leave it for long enough. But yeah, you don't want to be leaving those cases for too long. So if you've got tennis elbow and it's purely tennis elbow, what kind of things can you do for your elbow if you've got tennis elbow?
So there's a lot of things you can do. So the first thing, you'd probably want to rest it a little bit, put some ice to just decrease a bit the inflammation. And then it's going to be about just rehabilitation a little bit. So you'll do a little bit of mild strengthening, and then a bit of stretching as well. So there's a whole course of exercise that we or physio can give you and help you with that, to try and get you back on track as soon as possible.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's really important, isn't it, that diagnosis, because you wouldn't want to be stretching something if it's torn up here, but you would want to be loading it if you've got a little bit of irritation here. So it really, and they can be very inflamed. So even a small bit of irritation here can be very inflamed and look like it's torn, because you're very weak and you don't want to move it. But it's very important you get that diagnosis right. So diagnosis is king. So what if they've got a trapped nerve? What would you do with a trapped nerve, Maud?
So as I said, first finding out where it is, but then I treat the area, trying to release the tension that's causing the nerve irritation. And then you would probably do a bit of nerve flossing. So that's stretching of the nerve. So you're basically pulling the nerve up and down onto his course to try and free up its journey. So just free up the nerve and trying to decrease the inflammation or the irritation around the nerve.
Yeah, good stuff. So there's two types of nerve flossing, aren't there? So there's you can either stretch the nerve or you can glide the nerve. So we have two different types, because if the nerve itself is damaged and you start to stretch it, that can actually make the problem a lot worse. So you need to be very careful with this, and that's why you should go and see someone who knows exactly what they're talking about, just like Maud, she's there. I can't get used to this. It's kind of outside the window apparently, but I thought you were here, but you're not. But anyway, go and see someone like Maud there, because she'll be able to go through and examine you, which is important. We can talk through it as much as we want, but really the examination with this thing is really super important, because once you've got that clarity over what's going on, then you don't waste any time, you don't waste any money getting it sorted out, because you're just going to treat what's there and look around and treat what's there as well. And then you end up with an elbow that works, and that's quite good.
Yeah, and if you start giving too many things to do here, sometimes if it's not the right thing to do, we don't want to make things worse as well. So I think that's one thing to be.
Yeah, we get a lot of people that are coming into the clinic that have been given like 8-10 exercises to do, and I just think, oh my gosh, what a waste of your time. Find out what's wrong first, and then give very specific advice that doesn't waste your time and is going to work first time without you guessing about exercises and doing stuff. So
or internet
internet search
like that as well. Yeah,
there's dodgy people on Facebook, isn't it?
Like us,
yeah. Oops. But yeah, if you're listening to people, then we are credible. We don't just appear on Facebook. We have actually got lovely clinics that are now open. So if you really want to have a chat with us and find out what's going on, we can offer a complimentary session to talk through what's going on and get to the root of what's causing your problem. So if you'd like to go through with that, just put the comment FIX in the box below, FIX in capital letters, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible with as much more detail with your condition as we can to get you sorted out. So Maud, is there any other advice you'd give to people with tennis elbow?
It's the really high percentage that it's going to get better. It might be one of those things that if you don't do the right treatment, it might come back, kind of regularly, just come back every time you're using a bit too much. So it's good to really go through a good rehabilitation, a good strengthening to find it that you never have problem after again. So that would be one of the good things to see someone really get the right treatment, and then after you're done with it.
Yeah, exactly. My clinic's made up of a lot of people who have not got on very well with treatment elsewhere, and they tend to come into the clinic and they've got a long story of trying pretty much everything. So the type of people that I see, I'd be scanning straight away to get to the bottom of what's causing their problem, not wasting any time. Once we've found out what's causing their problem, then we can treat it in the right way. Unfortunately, the percentage of people that I see, because of the type of people, they often, at that point, because they've exhausted everything, they need surgery. So it's a bit devastating, really, because they could have got that sorted out a lot easier and a lot quicker had they had a good diagnosis to start with. So that's where people like Maud come in, and they can have a look at things, stop you seeing me, because if you're seeing me, you're in trouble.
You're at the end.
Double trouble, exactly. You're in trouble. So to try and see people that know what they're talking about, just like my friend Maud here. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. It's a nice, simple condition. What about golfer's elbow? How do you see those as being different? What kind of things would you look out for with that?
I do see them really less often. You want to, so it's more in the inside of your forearm here.
Yeah.
And then what can happen here is as well a little bit irritation of the ulnar nerve that passes just through the back of the elbow there. So I think that would be the nerve that would be irritated if there is a nerve irritation on that part. So on the front, it would be the radial nerve, and then at the back here, the ulnar nerve, which would give you some pins and needles more into this area of your hand. So there's differences like that that you would see as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a very good point, isn't it? The hand is quite a good indicator of what's happening higher up, especially if it's a nerve, because of where it affects on the hand. Like Maud said, it tends to go into these fingers if it's a specific nerve in the elbow down here, or if it's coming from a very specific place on the neck in here as well. So that's really key. And that's what we're looking for, is where it affects on the hand. If it affects the front of the hand here on these fingers, then it tends to come from the median nerve in here, which is just trapped in here. It can also get trapped in the forearm down here as well. The other place it can become a problem is on the biceps, or in the biceps in here, underneath the armpit, in the neck in here. So we see a lot of median nerve problems, which is this part of the hand, purely because of how many different places it can get trapped in. So there's loads of activities that can affect it. And the one on the back of the arm, just in here, the radial nerve, the entrapment points are that will tend to give you pain on the back of these fingers here. So if you've got pins, needles, or pain in the back of those fingers, and you've not had any trauma here, then you tend to find that it comes from either the extensor muscles here, and it's referring down. The triceps is a really common one that's often missed. So if you've got pins and needles here and you're worried about it, have a look at the triceps and just feel in the back of the arm here and see if it's causing any tingling down there. The other place is the back of the shoulder, so just in here, that's a good entrapment point. And then a big place is the back of the neck and shoulders in the trapezius here, and in that C5 to T1 area. So that tends to give you referral down into that part of the hand there. So yeah, as Maud said, it's really important to know exactly where the symptoms are. So that's why it's very difficult over the internet to give you advice on the conditions that you have. So I know we get a lot of inquiries asking for help on the internet, and we do suggest that you come and speak to us, or you come into the clinic and speak to us, which is even better, because then we can stick our fingers in there and see if it's hurting ourselves, and go through some reflex hammer tests as well. So yeah, very important to get a good diagnosis. Thankfully, we are better at Google than one thing. We might not be able to find the exact cause of millions of these conditions, but when it comes to fixing it, we'll certainly get you right.
Yeah, a bit better than the internet, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, we hope so. Although it's like a virtual osteopath now at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's working. You know, he's been quite
great testimonials. It's been really exciting trying our skills out without actually having to touch people as well. So that's been really exciting. Good. So Maud, it's that time of the evening. What would you say your top 3 tips are if you've got tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, or pain in the arm in this region here?
Well, diagnosis. So go see someone to make sure that you know exactly what's going on. Follow the right plan for you. So follow, for example, the plan that your physio or your osteopath giving you about strengthening your muscle or stretching any muscles to help you. And then the last one, watch out for the paint.
Watch out for the paint.
The paint when you're painting.
Well, don't use white paint. You have to use slightly off-white paint. You're less
careful on which
with slightly off-white paint. Is that what you mean?
No.
Yeah, you just got to be careful, haven't you? The repetition. God gave you 2 hands. Why not use the other hand as well? So it gives this one a bit of a rest.
Become left-handed.
Yeah, exactly. Or chunk it up. So try and do a little bit in the morning, come back and do a little bit later on. Because the reason why you get the problem here is because it's been overloaded constantly over a long period of time. So that might even just be typing at the computer as well. That can easily cause RSI or tennis elbow, lateral epididymitis. Excellent. Good. When are we live next, Maud?
Next week, I think.
Next week. Do Fridays work for you, by the way?
Yeah, Friday do work. I can, yeah.
Yeah, good. So we'll go live Friday. So Maud's Magic, we'll call this session, I think. We're trying to think of funky names. So if you've got some funky names, Terry, I think you're still watching. Glad you enjoyed the talk. So thanks very much for your comment. What should we call Maud's session, Terry? We'd love to. You can name Maud's session.
Oh gosh.
let's see if he comes back with a comment. But yeah, we're starting up the power hours again. So I've handed the baton over to one of the team members because I was crap at organising it and I'm crap at tech as well. I might be able to fix your neck or back, but don't ask me to fix your computer. You might be in trouble. But Terry, what should we call Maud's session on a Friday night? Think of a catchy name for us. Let's see if he comes back with something. Or anyone else. If anyone else watching, I can see there's 6 people currently watching right now. You get the chance to name Maud's session on a Friday night. So the first comment wins. So whoever names it first wins. And we'll call it that every single week. Pick a really awkward name for us to say.
Great opportunity to pick a weird thing.
Excellent. Let's see. We might not have time to wait, but let's see if anyone comes back with a funky name in the comments. So just drop it in the comments box below. We're going to head off now, but it's been great talking to you and fantastic talking to Maud over here. Maud, can we do the high five?
Oh, it's the other one.
Here you go. Excellent. High five.
This is not good.
Power hours, we've got to finish with a high five and see who messes it up and does it that way.
Yeah.
Excellent. Maud's Magic Healing Hour has got it. Excellent. Terry Vaughan. I think we should call it Vaughn's Magic Healing Hour. Vaughn's Magic Healing Hour. How's that sound, Terry? Maud's Magic Healing Hour. That's what it's called from now on. Friday night. So join us next Friday for more of Maud's Magic Healing Hour. If I can say that.
It's hard to say.
I'm going to go muscles on my tongue saying that, I think. That's going to be amazing. Excellent. Great. But it was great talking to you, Maud, and have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully you're up to some exciting stuff now that we're a bit more free. But we'll see. We get locked down again because of the second wave, but let's see what happens. But stay safe, and I'll see you next week. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.